Okay, and we're live. We're just about to kick off, everybody. And if I could just ask whoever is in the room, go ahead and tell us where you're from. Where is everyone joining us from today? And that'll also give me a heads up as to whether you're hearing me okay. In the chat box, let me know. Do you hear me? Do you see my screen? You should see a slide that says how to find and keep the best fit for Montessori families at your school. That is the topic of today. Do you guys see a chat box on the right side of your screen? And if so, please enter in there just if you're hearing me. And I'd love to hear. And if you could share with everybody, where are you from? Where are you joining us today? We usually have people all across the US, in Canada, oftentimes in Europe. Catherine, you hear and see me. Great. Hey, Catherine, where are you coming from today? Where are you joining us from? Anybody else, please let us know. So far, we've got a great turnout, and we're going to get rolling now. Paula, you hear me? Thanks. In Michigan, Jess, you're from Oregon. That's amazing. San Diego, awesome. Was just there for the AMS conference. That was a beautiful, wow, what a beautiful place San Diego is. Um, can hear you and see. Thank you so much, everybody. Wow. Okay, coming in from Miami, from Virginia. Wow, North Carolina. Canada, Patricia, we're in Toronto. Just so you know, Hubbli is located in Toronto. Are you around Toronto? Would love to meet with you. You might be in BC, which is very far away, but if you happen to be around Toronto, would love to come by your school or pop by and meet us. Coming in from Louisiana, awesome. I did the webinar last week, actually from Savannah, Georgia. So I love the internet. It allows us to connect with people. Patricia, you're in Alberta. Cool. We've got we've got a lot of customers there in Alberta. Okay, so we're gonna get things kicked off here, and just thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And I just want to let you know you're in the right place if you spend hours managing communication tools. So just take a look at this picture, right? Can you relate to this at all? There's paper. Look at this desk. There's paper. There's calendars. There's binders. There's money, piles of money, sticky notes. All the while there's this computer sitting there beside her that could actually manage all the same types of tasks. And if it had the right software, it could actually do it all within the fraction of the time and hassle. So, like, I just want to let you know, if you can relate to this at all, you're in the right place. Because if you can relate to spending hours every week managing piles of paperwork, and if you can relate to wanting to spend more time on higher value tasks, like being in the classroom, or being face to face with parents, either currently enrolled parents or new parents, prospective parents, or how about alumni parents, right? There's a lot of things we can do with our time rather than the busy work of managing piles of paper and binders. So one thing I want to mention now before we really kick this off is that if you stick with me all the way to the end of the webinar, there's going to be this really awesome bonus for you. But I'm not going to tell you what it is just yet, because I really want you to be motivated to see all the information, because I know it's relevant to you and that you need it. So that's my little carrot. And I'll let you wonder what it is for now, but I promise it's worth hanging around for. Okay, so the first goal here is how to use what we're going to learn, how to use the right communication tools the right way so that parents actually read your messages and are informed of what's going on. The second goal is to learn how to be found by and how to engage the most ideal families for your school, all the way throughout your enrollment process. The families that match with the culture of your school and have the greatest natural value and resonate most naturally with the Montessori method. And the third goal is we're going to talk about how to reduce the time and the expense that goes into managing a disjointed patchwork communication system, which is something that's really sort of an issue across the board. So just as I mentioned a second ago, me and my family, we live here in Toronto, and here in Ontario, the Ministry of Education loves to just pound on the paperwork. And my wife Kyla, she's an expert in early childhood education, and she's actually worked in many different scenarios here in Toronto. And I can tell you, I know firsthand how much time she spends just doing paperwork, documenting the progress of children that she teaches. And of course, this stuff is important, but it seems like, states and provinces, the bureaucracy really likes to make this stuff as painful as possible. And there's better ways. So, so I'm sure everybody here agrees that parent engagement is incredibly important for successful outcomes for students, right? I don't need to tell you guys that. And every major university has education departments focused on it exclusively, like Johns Hopkins and Harvard and USC. And of course, it's such a such a pillar of the Montessori method. But no one is actually addressing the biggest roadblock to parent engagement. And I became obsessed with fixing parent engagement for many reasons. I decided that it was like my mission in life to figure out the system for Montessori schools that will not only fix parent engagement issue, but also make it way easier for staff to perform their jobs by the goal is to remove all the hassles that exist with managing multiple communication tools and strategies, right? So the beautiful thing is that it's the same solution for both sides of the coin. So that's why I built Hubbli, which is this out-of-the-box, all-in-one parent engagement system. And the lessons I'm going to give you today are all based off thousands of conversations I've had with school directors, school consultants, teachers, parents, office managers, communication directors, admissions directors. And we've used all of those conversations and that information, that data to build, and we use it to continuously improve Hubbli. So this information is not coming from, it's not actually only coming from those conversations. It's also coming from data that we have a system that has already managed over 3 million parent messages, 3 million points of engagement with parents. And we can actually look at that data and we can see what works and what doesn't work. But I also want to make sure you understand that nothing I'm going to show you here today requires you to become a Hubbli customer. This is not about being a Hubbli customer. That's not the topic of this webinar. I'm teaching you strategies that can be applied to any system or tool, no matter what you're using or where you're at. And you are probably already using a patchwork of tools that offer most, if not all, of the features that you need, right, to make the system work. So, the truth is, guys, you probably already know most of what I'm going to say today, but maybe you're not exactly sure how to put it into words, how to frame it, or how to use this information strategically. So you've probably also heard about all the tools I'm going to mention today. So you've probably tried them out here and there, but you're busy running a school, and that keeps people extremely busy. And all this information, gets, it's hard to organize and put into action when you're too busy and you're not necessarily an expert in this area. So I'll deal with this stuff. We'll get into all this, but I'm just wondering, just does this sound familiar to you? And I'm assuming it does if you're, in a leadership position in a school. So the big question is, why is building a great parent engagement system so hard to nail down? Well, schools are generally, like I just kind of mentioned, schools are not being run by digital communication experts, let's be honest, right? Schools are run by education experts, and that's the way it should be. That's the kind of school that I want my kids in, right? But this does create a distinct challenge. And the reality is that school leaders are, to be honest, usually creating pretty bad communication systems. So every school we talk to doesn't seem to have any real standard of communication between the school and the parents. From one teacher to the other, it seems to be a totally different story, and they're kind of doing whatever they want. So the question is, why aren't school leaders kind of enforcing a standard of communication for parents, right? So if we think on the business side of things, and that's all I'm going to talk about today, right? I'm not somebody that can inform you on how to educate children, but what I can do is talk about the topic of, how to develop the right kind of customer service layer at a school. And parents really are your customers, right? So shouldn't the quality of communication experience be geared towards what the parents need and want, rather than what the staff prefer, right? Parents are, as the school gets older, the parents don't. And every year, parents, you're getting new parents in, and their expectations and their daily communication behaviors are changing as technology changes. So I wonder if you could imagine, what it would be like if you, went into your local McDonald's restaurant, all right? If you would allow me for a moment to compare Montessori schools to McDonald's. I apologize in advance, but could you imagine what it would be like if every cashier could simply just decide for themselves what form of payment they prefer to accept, right? So you're in line, you're about to go get a really healthy Big Mac and large fries, and you pull out your credit card, and the cashier says, "Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't like dealing with credit cards. I personally only accept cash." Right? That might be pretty frustrating. I mean, especially if you don't have any cash on you, right? So you might decide, that's not a great experience. I'm not going to go back to that store, right? And that's kind of what's going on oftentimes in schools today. So we see on average about 20 different communication tools used per school. And so if you think about all your staff, like what does everyone use for newsletters and announcements and invoices and documentations and progress reports and enrollment forms, the list goes on. There's so many points of engagement with parents. And we generally find that not only does the office staff use around 10 different tools, each teacher seems to have their own little patchwork and their own little preference of how they prefer to communicate with the parents as well. And in reality, most schools are actually training their parents to ignore their messages because the communication experience is so inconsistent. So schools are actually, it's very common that schools send repetitive information over and over, really in the hope that parents will read it and be, so they just kind of send everything to everyone because it's really difficult to always group information only to the right people, and keep it 100% relevant to everybody. So what most people don't realize is that that behavior actually ensures that many parents won't read any of your messages. The results of this lack of standardization and lack of, focused communication, and I do want to make sure I distinguish from, from what teachers need to have that autonomy in the classroom, which is obviously crucial. But if there's no standards put in place for how your school as a unified unit communicates with the parents, which is really the customer service side of the business, it creates way more workload for everybody on the staff. Because remember, when parents don't like the communication experience, they ignore it or they put it off for later, which makes them forget about it. And then they miss information. And when parents miss information and are not informed, that means more work for everyone else. And it also means less retention and it means less referrals. Um, so it really does impact your enrollment. And all of that equals far more work to keep the school running and keep the school full and to grow the school or to have the ability to pay your teachers more or add new programming. So let's do a poll for a second. Please use the chat box. I want to hear from the audience today. How many communication tools are you guys using at your school? And just feel free to type it in the chat box. We'll take a second, take a minute, and think about that. Like I'd really please share with us what tools do you guys use, and how many do you think, off the top of your head, how many different communication tools are you using? Generally, what we're going to hear is things like Facebook and email and Constant Contact and MailChimp and Shutterfly, and you might have an invoicing system. You might be using some other school-specific tools for certain things like records. You could be using any one of the Google tools or the Microsoft tools or a combination thereof. So please share with us today in the chat box. Tell us, what are you guys using at your school? Are you using text messages, Remind, WhatsApp? These are all the things we hear all the time. Shutterfly, I might have mentioned that one. Sign Up Genius, Doodle. Do any of these sound familiar? Please share with us. Take a minute, think about that, and tell us. Paper, email, and text. Yeah, I actually didn't say paper. And of course, there's so much paper. So you write it. So Symphony says we write it on a board. When you walk into the school, you can't miss it. We use paper and pen, send notes home every day, and text messages. Okay, great. Yep, we see that. That's a very common practice for sure. Usually there's much more paper being used than people even realize. So Jess says we emails for each classroom and the whole school. You use transparent classrooms, school newsletters, mailboxes, school whiteboard, classroom message boards, mailboxes. Okay. Jennifer says emails, Facebook, Instagram, invoices, newsletters. Yeah, so this is a really common result that when we ask this question, and when we talk to schools and we interview them and we help consult them to understand what they're doing, where they could save a lot of time, if there's any redundancies. Even in the list I'm seeing here, there's a lot of redundant tools, and each one of these, if we consider each one of these, actually takes time to manage. So thanks so much, guys. Thanks for sharing with us. It really helps. So let's take a look at some important market trends for a second here. So the private school sector in the U.S. is actually growing. The overall size of the market's growing, and especially with the new federal leadership is only going to be doing whatever they can to grow the private school sector for sure, right? And so the market's growing, but what that means also is that it's actually getting more challenging to keep schools from school to school to keep the enrollment rates up, right, per school, right? Because the bottom line is, and I don't want to come off rude or cynical, but I think Montessori schools could really approach running their schools a little bit more like the rest of the business world. And I'm only referring to the communication side of things when we're talking about marketing and customer service, and how about alumni relations, right? So parent engagement is such a has such a huge impact. And if we take some of the best practices that are going on in the rest of the business world, the very small amounts of effort could have a really positive outcome. So what I mean to say is, fixing this problem is actually really easy. It just takes having a bit of a framework. So what we're looking at here is, these are the 8 business metrics of school business success. So every single business that exists, including schools, live and die by their performance in these 8 metrics. Now, I've changed the generic labels that you would learn, in business school, to be more specific to Montessori schools. But if you interchange some of the terms like customers or units, this would apply to a shoe store or a restaurant as much as it would your school. So if a school is struggling in any of these areas, the school will generate less revenue, and it might even be running at a loss. And the school owners and the staff and the director will experience more frustration and conflict. And the demands on the time of the whole staff will be much higher, while generally everybody will be paid more poorly than they should or could, right? And all this comes down to how good the parent communication system is. Because regardless of how amazing the teachers are, and regardless of how magical the classroom is, if everything is happening inside the classroom is not being communicated, and if the parents aren't engaging with it, unfortunately that won't have the result on the business side, on the organization side, that it really should. So this is a simple spreadsheet that identifies 8 key business metrics schools should focus on improving year over year. So it also shows how an incremental growth of only 10% in each one of those metrics year over year will more than double the net profits of a school in 2 years. So just assuming this is all based on starting with 100 students, and each one of these rows is just identifying the kind of the goal kind of standard that people expect. So if you got 100 students, and if you have an 80% overall retention rate, which is pretty good, it could be better than that. I've talked to schools that have much better than that, I've talked to schools that have much lower retention than that, of course. But that means that you've got 20 new enrollments that need to come in. And that means that if you've got 20 new enrollments that you need, then you should have 80 inquiries. You should have 4 times the amount of inquiries coming in as you have spots to fill. And if you've got 80 inquiries that you need to generate, then that means you need to actually you need to ensure that at least 800 new families are learning about your school, because that's about the ratio too. 10%. And then if we're starting with about 1.2 children per family with an average program tuition of 9,000, that might be higher or lower than you. We're just talking averages here, across the board. Programs per child, say we're starting at 1, and let's say you've got like a 10% profit margin per child. And like currently, if you're hitting those, because that should be your goal, that should be kind of a good starting place, you would be at about a $93,000 profit margin. And again, I just want, every time I say profit, please, I understand that we're not in this for profit. People running schools are in this for love and passion, and I understand that. But profit is not a bad word. Profit means that's what you've got to reinvest into the school, to pay teachers more, to grow, to add programming, to add another facility, to add another room, to improve the, it's not about, profiteering, but the profit is the mechanism for educating more children with the Montessori method. Okay, so I hope I don't come off as too Trumpian here, but this is just really important stuff. And if you are able to improve each one of those metrics by 10% over from one year to the next, you would actually see a 46% total profit increase. Okay, and if you're able to do that again from year 2 to year 3, then you would actually be at 100% growth, and that's a very healthy school, and that just means, like I said, more investment back into the school. So how does this work? Well, aside from being, a cool mathematical trick, the significance is that, this strategy allows you to actually double your profits simply by slightly improving your existing numbers. You just need to have clarity on what metrics that you need to work on, and then they all compound on each other. So if you approach it in this way and work on each one of these business measurements one at a time, just to improve each one only by 10% from one year to the next, then it's actually really manageable. You just have to know what you're working on. You have to identify everything, and you have to have clarity on that. And then it's easy to do. You're all smart and creative people. So now let's get into specifics now. I want to talk about, like, on the tactical level, what are things you can do to improve those metrics? So this one lady I spoke with recently said that she had to just simply reschedule a meeting, and it took 45 minutes for her to just reschedule a meeting, because she was trying to manage it with a group, and everyone's doing reply all emails back and forth, right? And it ends up being like the spaghetti-like email thread, and just to figure out who said what, she's sitting there sleuthing through all these emails, and it took her 45 minutes to get, see, okay, well, these people can do this time, these people can do that time. That took 20 minutes to figure out. Now we're going to send another email and see which ones, it's like voting through one of the most inefficient ways possible. Okay. And, oftentimes in schools, we need to make decisions with committees and get everybody's opinion, right? So that has to be an efficient process. So this is what you end up with when everyone's hitting reply all on these group email threads, right? It's like, this gets really fun when everyone's like on different email providers and, who organize the thread differently. And then, so what you end up with this really long thread of emails. It kind of looks like this. And all the messages are like collapsed, and you got to dig into each one. And I kind of it's like a bowl. It's like bowls of spaghetti stacked on top of each other, and you're just looking for one little specific noodle of information, right? This is not an efficient way to communicate. Whatever what took that person 45 minutes could have been handled in 1 or 2 minutes with the right tool. So now, to really send this home, I want this image to sink in for a second, because the next time you go to hit reply all to an email, I want you to think about the unintended casualties that happen almost every day, from what is a seemingly pretty innocent behavior. But like seriously, I have met school directors who were forced to resign due to a reply all mistake. So if that itself isn't scary enough to deter you from hitting reply all, then I hope this image helps, because poor little guy, just think about this cute little kitty. So a much better strategy. So instead of using email for group communication, is that you should use a tool designed specifically for group communication. So group threads like this one from the Hubbli system are much better for group communication. So once something is posted, if somebody has a question, everyone can see the answer, so that to the teacher put. So the teacher doesn't have to separately answer it for everybody, so that it's and it's an easy. You can see the conversation there in the thread, and everything is contained in that group. So when people need to find information, it's already organized for them in context, rather than having to sift through their entire email archive, doing searches and opening up all these threads where everything else from their entire life also is piled on top of it. So you also want to make sure that whatever tool you use to send messages, it tracks all the messages and tells you who's read them, who's clicked on them, who's replied to them. If you look at this example here in Hubbli, we actually make it really easy to see this information on every single message that you send. So in summary, social groups like this one here in the Hubbli system are a great way to reduce tons of time and effort around just simple group communication management, because they've got all these features, the real-time updates, and group-specific event information. You can answer questions just once for many people. You can share media in these groups, and you can share private document sharing and editing as well. And it's really important stuff. This actually reduces a lot of time. So you also want to make sure that the system you use has the option to send out notifications, and you want to make sure that it has both email and mobile notifications, so that it has a better chance of getting read. So this is a fairly standard feature of group communication tools. You'll see it in Facebook, in Google Groups, you'll see it in Instagram and Twitter and all those different things. The problem is, with those tools that are not built for schools, is that parents can turn off notifications, right? So, and they often do that on those other networks, because they don't want to get all the notifications from everything, right? So a lot of times they just blanket turn off all their notifications from all their groups. LinkedIn is one that I know that I've done that on, right? So the benefit of a notification system that's built for schools, like this one here on Hubbli, is that it's a discrete channel of communication, so it doesn't get mixed with everything else. It's pure. This is where my school information is, right? Also, we know that you need that authority to override settings when something is urgent, right? So as a school leader, you can always do that, here in Hubbli. Whereas in Facebook, you have no control, of course, over how the system works. Another really important feature you want to look for, and I really can't stress this enough, is that whatever system or tool you use, make sure the parents don't have to log in to respond, right? You don't want an additional barrier between them getting the information. You certainly want them to get the notification without having to log in. You also want them to be able to respond. If you want to increase parent engagement, you absolutely must remove as many barriers as possible. So you want to use a tool that allows users to reply to a system notification that lands in their email directly from that email. So again, there are a number of tools out there that do that. Facebook and LinkedIn, Twitter, those are a few. This diagram here is an example of how Hubbli does it. So first and foremost, this is about removing the barriers, like I said, from parent communications, right? So that it's easy as possible for everyone. So it's a pleasurable experience. But there's actually a very valuable ancillary benefit here in the Hubbli one, because it's your system as a school leader. you actually have access to all the communication records between your staff and parents, even if they didn't log in. Because Hubbly's managing it, you actually can go in and verify and see if you have access to all the records and documentation of all conversations between your staff and your parents, and if they opened it or clicked and all that stuff. So that can oftentimes come in handy, which this is access that you don't have on really any other service, unless you really own it, right? So you can't do that on Facebook or Google or any of those other ones. Okay, so calendar management. This is another place where we see schools losing so much time that could really be better spent on much more valuable tasks, right? Many admins I talk to have multiple calendar systems and tools and are keeping each one of them up to date manually. It actually takes them a lot of time to keep everything up to date. So you ideally want to create separate calendars for each class or program so that parents don't have to sift and scour through other events that are not relevant to them. Because if they have to do that, many times they just won't even bother, or they're just too busy, or it's kind of too annoying, and then they push it off till later, and then they forget, and then they miss things, and that's when you have to do all the extra work to follow up, and then parents yell at you because it's they think it's your job to keep them informed, and it doesn't really matter whose job or responsibility it is. I talk to schools and they say, well, listen, we tell them, here's where the information is, it's up on the wall, it's on you to be there. But the reality is that might be so, that might be your feeling, but that doesn't mean that if they don't come, you don't have to work extra hard. Because when your parents don't show up to things and when they're not informed of things, no matter whose responsibility it is, you have to do more work, and that means less efficiency and just a harder time performing your job. And unfortunately, those are the types of tasks that aren't the fun ones, right? That's not like sitting down and having a nice conversation with parents, or getting into the classroom and engaging with the kids. That's like kind of the annoying follow-up busy work and dealing with disgruntled parents sometimes, which is not the fun part of the job, right? So on Hubbly, we actually give you this one centralized calendar that allows you to create events and assign them to specific programs or groups. And then it can actually send out notifications to the parents as well. But, like all the features, Hubbly, has kind of we've baked that into our one platform. There are many separate calendar tools out there that offer you those same features, so, you want to make sure that, also another key thing, if you notice here in Hubbly, parents can just synchronize their whatever calendar app or tool or phone or anything they like to use, so they don't even have to log in. And again, you can accomplish that with other calendar tools as well, like Google Calendars, as an example, has those features as well. And so if you want to use like a separate tool, that's one that'll give you these benefits too. And newsletters. Okay, so newsletters are, I could talk for hours about newsletters, but there's a time and place for newsletters. But if you're using groups and these other tools I'm talking about the right way, those notifications coming from those other tools should be taking care of the majority of your day-to-day announcements and updates and reminders to parents. And they should be, doing it in a way that's only sending the parents 100% relevant information. So, if the newsletters are not bogged down with like day-to-day details, it actually allows you to write much more engaging and targeted newsletters that will be valued by your parents and prospective parents, rather than something that's kind of like a long list of boring information that's 90% irrelevant to them, that they end up just ignoring the second time they see it in their inbox. Okay, so newsletters should really be focused on parent education, giving them tools and understanding that they can actually use at home with their kids. Your newsletter can become this value add, something that parents look forward to and even share with their friends, right? Something that, rather than something that gets dodged, your newsletter should be something that in and of itself generates more enrollment of parents like the ones that you currently have, which is just the best way to grow your school. And this is an example of the Hubbli newsletter designer. It has all the same functions and features you can find in other email newsletter tools like MailChimp or Constant Contact or Mad Mimi. There's just a few of them that are out there. But of course, with Hubbli, it's not a separate tool, so you don't have to manage lists or contacts in multiple systems, of course. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the average school is spending approximately $2,000 per month on just buying paper, printer ink, photocopier repairs, postage, and of course, just 2 hours per day on average just spent simply managing paper, which is just time flushed down the toilet, and honestly, money flushed down the toilet as well. And it's not all that fun. So, what you want to be using is a digital form tool. Okay, so this is an example of the Hubbli digital forms. This is what a simple field trip could look like, field trip permission form. But I'll just tell you, parents should be able to fill it out on any device. It should handle signatures and it should take payments. And the key thing here is that when parents submit these digital forms, the job is done. You don't have to collect paper. You don't have to type data into another system. You don't have to file things. It's automatically organized for you in a digital filing system. Okay, and this is the way Hubbli does it. Hubbli digital forms. With the Hubbli tool, we cover every single type of paperwork, any form that parents fill out, and any documentation or records or anything that teachers fill out. It's all done digitally on Hubbli, and there's all that time of, like, if you can imagine an enrollment process or a parent packet, all that stuff, all that time, the weeks and the months go into collecting all that paper and getting that information organized into other systems. It is incredible amounts of work that should not exist. And, Google Forms can do it. There's a couple other tools out there. It's best, we think it's best if those features and those tools can be integrated into that one central database. But even if you're not going to do that, if you're going to manage it as a separate tool, you can save so much workload for your staff by using a digital form tool. I could talk about this one for hours as well. Another great usage of digital forms, is polls. So this is the Hubbli poll feature. It's part of our digital forms feature. It takes about 3 seconds to make a poll. And they're a much easier way of making decisions, or at least getting consensus within a group, So this is great for scheduling meetings or deciding on what gift, you want to send or what you want to spend money on. So the point is, if you were to do this over a group email, like we were talking about before, it could be a daunting task. But if you do it with a poll like this, first of all, it's a pleasant experience for everybody. It looks a lot cooler, and whoever is responsible for managing it can make decisions in minutes rather than hours. I'm just going to pause here to see if there's any questions. Okay, so I don't see any questions right now, and I'll just keep going because we don't have a whole lot of time left, and we've got a lot of stuff to cover. So when you're dealing with digital form provider, like with a digital form provider like Hubbli, this is another example here. We actually organize all your entries for you, so you don't have to, type them in manually into like a spreadsheet or another database system, like for weeks at a time. So when you have to find something, it's really just a simple search or a sort, rather than thumbing through stacks of paper. When there's a form or a report or a documentation filled out by, about a student, by a teacher, you have to think, how much time does it take you to then organize it and send it out or look it up or inform the parents at that point? So what if all the parents or staff, all they had to do was fill out a form and the system sent the information to the right place and to the right person and, placed the information on a page about the student, for easy lookup or printing or editing or anything like that. So this is just an example of, let's say a teacher fills out an incident report. It can automatically send, information to, like, a notification to the parent. Or as an example, the teacher could fill out the incident report and then an admin could actually get notified with the message that's going to go to the parent, and then you could have a link to approve it, and then it sends to the parent. But the bottom line is, it takes 2 seconds to fill out a digital form, and then all the other steps, should be managed by a system, and that's what a digital communication tool should be able to do for you. So that's how Hubbli works. So another really helpful tool that you'll find in Hubbli and elsewhere, of course, is if your parents are booking conferences, parent-teacher conferences, or tours for prospective parents, what we usually hear is that they have like a sheet on the door, of every room, for parent-teacher conferences, and parents have to kind of run back and forth from door to door, see what's available or what isn't available. So what we have here on Hubbli is a more automated digital scheduling system, so people can see all schedules from one central place, and then it sends automated confirmations and reminders before every event. So it handles cancellations and it synchronizes with your existing calendars. So all these things that can just take up a lot of time, and parents can actually do this from wherever they are, from any device, whether it's a tablet or a phone or their office, and they can see what's available. So it's this type of system. I know there's a couple other tools out there I see schools using, like Sign Up Genius or Schedule Once. All these tools have their own monthly fee generally. But I really do suggest using a tool that automates the steps for scheduling, because that's just one other thing that is just really easy to remove from your staff and your day-to-day workload. So up until now, we've been talking about internal communications, with your enrolled parents. But I want to switch gears now, and I want to talk about, communicating with prospective parents. Most Montessori schools today want to increase their enrollment numbers, or at least increase the numbers of inquiries of families that are actually looking for a Montessori school like yours, rather than parents who are just looking for anything, because you all know that parents that are more in line with the values of the Montessori method are more likely to stay, and the ones that aren't are much more likely to leave in a year and take usually they take a family or two with them when they go, right? So the best way to feel confident in directing the wrong families to look for for a different school for their child is to have enough inquiries so you don't feel like your back is up against the wall, right? So when set up properly, your school's website should be getting found by prospective families, and it should be increasing the number of inquiries of families that are an ideal fit for your school, and then driving them into your enrollment process. So another way to think about your school website is like a billboard. And I often give this analogy when helping people understand what Hubbli's web hosting and search engine optimization features can do for them. So this is one of the core features that we offer. In fact, all the other features I've shown you here today are delivered through this, through the vehicle of this high-performing website, and it's really easy to customize. So everyone knows they need a website, and I don't think I've ever met a school that doesn't have something online. But what I find is that most school directors don't quite understand what their website is meant to actually do for them and how it should be used. Usually it's just being managed by some parent volunteer that is not necessarily the cream of the crop in digital marketing or website design. So one thing that is key about how your website should be designed is that the purpose of the website is not, and I repeat, is not to sell people on your school. Its purpose is to get the right families to inquire about your school. And those are two different goals. When you're trying to get someone to inquire, the content on that page would be different than if you were trying to actually get them to sign up and enroll in your school. It's way too early at that point, right, for enrollment. So, you just want them to enter into the process of getting to enrollment. So this is an important distinction, because you should not be trying to sell anyone on the Montessori method on your website. That is what the rest of your enrollment process is for, right? The next step after they get into your website, right? So when they come to an open house or they do a tour, etc., that's where that happens. But the point at which they find your school online, that's when it's all about getting them to your open house or to schedule, a tour at your school. So one of the best ways to engage prospective parents is to use a blog, right? So, your blog is a great place to answer common questions. This is a feature that you would get out of the box on your Hubbli site as well. And so if you notice that, a few parents are asking, the same questions about school, bus routes, or extracurricular activities, etc., you can actually create posts that dive kind of deeper into these topics. And please pay attention. The most important rule about blogging, this is like something you should write down, is to be consistent above all else. Make sure that if you're going to use a blog that you're writing consistently, whether it's once a month or once a week. Really should be once a week, but make sure that when you're writing the same day and you're releasing a blog post the same day every time. Now, this is when you should pull out your pens, really. And here's an action tip, right? So this is how you manage a blog. So for a school, because it's not something that just one person should really be doing, but if you use your teachers and your administrative team, carve out a posting schedule that's not too daunting, right? Once a week, if you spread that across a bunch of people and you set up a calendar, right? The best way to do this, just assign a different staff member each week to post something, okay? So not really hard to do. And you just want to make sure that you're writing parent-focused content. That's the most important thing to think about it when you're talking about what to write. This is, you should be writing about topics that, again, parents will want to read, will, that share with their friends, something that they can take home and use that night, like, as an example, how to get your kids to eat healthy, or, top 3 strategies for handling sibling fights. A couple of ideas that you can use. And, and here's the ultimate way to achieve reduction in communication and parent engagement workload. If you really want to simplify your parent communication system, you're going to want to set up some automated workflows. I've touched on this a little bit with the digital forms, but you want to handle all the tasks that you repeat on a regular basis should be managed by a system. So here's an example of an automated enrollment workflow that we recently built for one of our Hubbli customers inside their Hubbli site. So I'll just explain the steps here, but basically, somebody, and this is just custom. Could be different for every school, but let's say a prospective parent did a Google search, or they clicked on a Facebook ad, and they came to their Hubbli site and they filled out that digital inquiry form, and then the admin, the admissions director gets a notification, and then that parent that filled it out can start getting a sequence of timed emails that are pre-written but are there to get them to be interested in your school, and also drive them to self-book a tour or sign up for an open house. These are things that could be happening automatically without you even having to do any work. And then it could also send you a task to call. Right, our system will actually create automated tasks to follow up with parents if they don't hit one of these goals. And then, after the tour, you're going to get a task reminder like, you need to approve this prospect for the application form, and you just have to click one thing, and then that parent will get an automated message that's pre-written and directs them to the application form. So steps like this are really important, and with a system like Hubbli, you'll actually be able to go in and see where everybody is at any point in time. There are many tools that have this type of workflow automation, Infusionsoft, HubSpot, Drip, Marketo. These are just a few of them out there. But they're generally not cheap, and the learning curve is quite steep. But if you're interested in using the Hubbli's workflow tool, it's actually designed specifically for schools. So you don't have to become like a digital marketing expert on your own, of course. So my question to you now is, what do you think about all this stuff? I'm not exactly sure why you showed up here today, but I bet I can guess. For a few of you probably wanted to be able to send messages to parents and trust that they get read. And you probably don't know if parents are reading your messages or not. You have to keep on following up with them and resending the same communications over and over again. And you probably would benefit from being able to free up your time from the kind of repetitive remedial things that you do, like sorting through sheets of paper, so you can actually spend more time, doing more enjoyable things, like being in the classroom or interviewing new families, that are a good fit for your school, right? And you, of course, you're capable of a lot more, but you just need to get these roadblocks out of your way. And of course, you want to give your parents a communication experience that they actually, will benefit from more and appreciate, and don't feel like they need to dodge. So you can do this, right? You've shown up here today, you've made it a priority, you've taken notes, hopefully, and maybe you're even excited about making some of these changes. So I want you to know that an efficient system can really change your school. And I see it happen every day, and it can change your life. But you've got to know exactly what you need to do at your school, because all schools are a little different. So that's where we come in. So you've got two options, right? Number one, option one, you can kind of take this information I've given you here today, which is pretty high level, and then you can figure out, what changes to make on your own. But, I'm pretty sure, like most school leaders, you're probably really busy and you don't have a whole lot of time to figure this all out. So the obvious question is, how can you quickly and easily figure this stuff out at your school? So we've started offering select schools a parent communication assessment. But before I start telling you about this, I want to get your permission. I don't want to just start selling something to you, but I want to make sure I've got your permission to take a few minutes and tell you about how this assessment works. So do I have your permission to do that? Please just let me know in the chat box on the right side. Do I have your permission to go ahead and tell you about how this assessment works? Okay, got your permissions. I'm going to move forward. Thanks, guys. So the parent communication report card, that's what we're calling it. This is the fastest way to learn exactly what your school needs to attain workload reductions in your parent communication system. And the goal is so that you can free up your time and focus on those higher value tasks. So what you'll learn from this assessment is how your website is performing for speed and security and the overall search engine optimization, and how you can increase the amount of inquiries that prospective families that are actually a good fit from your school, while tracking them effortlessly throughout the whole process. And how you can substantially reduce the hassles and the workload of managing all these different forms of communication, because there's so many forms. So what you actually get is a 1 hour live one-on-one assessment with me, an actionable report with specific strategies and tools for your school. So this is a custom report for your school after we really dig through your school, your processes, and your needs. Optionally, if you want to be a Hubbli customer, you absolutely do not have to be a Hubbli customer to use this information. But if you want to be, we'll also offer you 50% off our setup and our training, and you'll even get 1 free month on our annual subscription. So the way this works is the first thing we're going to do, this is the first deliverable, you actually get a website health report. So we're going to run through your website and do this analysis, and we'll tell you exactly how your site is performing in all the key areas that determine if your school website is likely to be found by prospective families searching for schools online. Okay, so that's some really important stuff. We're also going to give you an action list identifying the top 3 things that you need to do to update for either the existing tools that you are using or for tools that you need to adopt, right? And we'll help you identify those as well. And this is where this third deliverable here, which is an expense and revenue calculator, this is where we get really crystal clear, understanding exactly the parent communication report card, the Hubbli setup, which is $19.99, and the Hubbli free month, which is $199. So that total value is $2,696. But your investment today is only $97. So if you sign up for this today, the parent communication report card only costs $97. And if you decide, this is optional, but if you decide to sign up for Hubbli, we'll give you a 50% discount off the setup fee, so that's reducing it by $1,000, and you get a free month, so that's another. So the total savings, all you have to spend is $97 to get this really, really crucial, information about your specific school, and your total savings could be $1,400. So you can get started today. We actually only have 5 spots available, and so it's $97. And in a second, I'm going to give you, so you can always go to hubbli.com/getreport at any point today to sign up for it. I also want to let you know that there's a 100% money back guarantee. If you do this report with us and you don't like it, we're going to give you every penny back, plus we'll give you an additional $25 for your time, just for wasting your time. Now, we are so sure that you're going to find this valuable, that you're not going to ask for this. But if you do, then obviously, we don't want we don't want this to be a loss. We don't want to waste an hour of your time. So we'll actually pay you for that time if you feel that it's not worth it, right? And here's that bonus I was talking about at the beginning of the webinar. If you sign up, for the webinar, if you sign up for this parent communication report card by the end of the webinar, you'll actually get a download of our ebook titled Master Parent Engagement. This is a free bonus offer, and anyone that signs up for it are existing customers, of course. So at this point, unfortunately, we only have the capacity to offer this to 5, these consulting packages to 5 customers, and they always do sell out. So let me go ahead and give you the ability now to go ahead and sign up for this. So I'm just going to drop this offer down, and you should see it on your display. So now is also a great time. So this is going to be up for 15 minutes here. This is a great time to ask me any questions. So are you guys hearing me okay now? I hope I hope I didn't lose. I just saw some messages here that it cut out. Are you guys hearing me okay? Okay, so okay, you are hearing me. Okay, great. And so if you guys have any questions about anything, please please do go ahead. Kelly, you're asking, is this a Canadian data system? The one we have right now originates from the U.S., so everything is geared to the U.S. So Kelly, yeah, we've got many Canadian schools using it. We're based in Canada, and there's no reason as a Canadian why you can't use this tool. Absolutely. So guys, please let me know if you have any questions about anything. I'm here to answer them for you. Be on for another 15 minutes here. April, you asked, how do we base the monthly fee on Hubbli? It's actually just a standard monthly fee. It's just based on the features you want to use. Our Hubbli Essentials is either $199 or $149 a month, depending on what package you choose. Meaning, if you pay monthly, it's $199 a month, and if you pay a yearly package, it's priced at $149 a month. So you actually save $50 a month, and you get everything for that. There's no limits. So it's all the same price. Yeah, the best way, if you're finding you've got a lot to think about here, and there is a lot to think about, and that's why instead of trying to just sell you really on Hubbli, we don't really do that. What we do is we offer this parent assessment, this parent communication assessment, because it gives you the consulting time and the value of consulting to really dig through your system and your situation and what your tools are to see if you need a system like Hubbli or not. But that's why it's just a $97 price today, which is really, obviously low for the information that you're going to get, which is, whether you use Hubbli or not, should give you information that should have a really drastic impact on your school if you implement what you learn. So if you've got, let me just see how many more minutes we have while this. So you can sign up any point. You can go to hubbli.com/get-report anytime today to get this this offer. But if you do it in the next 15 minutes, you also get a free, you get a download of our free ebook here, which is going to be really helpful and give you lots of great strategies for engaging parents. And again, it's totally, it does not, you're not going to have to be a Hubbli customer to use that information. You can use it with any system or any tools. Can I answer any more questions for anybody? Oh, sure, Patricia. We can definitely call you. Have somebody actually reach out to you now. You don't have to wait. I'll just send a message over to the support team. Is this Patricia from Alberta? Okay, great. Thanks for joining us today, Patricia. Did anybody have any more questions about any of the topics we covered, tools that are out there, anything about this this assessment, how it works, what you what you get out of it, or how Hubbli works? I'm here to answer any questions. We've got a few more minutes here. We have 5 more minutes, and we've got 3 units left for the parent communication report card sessions. So please do, if you want to make sure you get one. We can only handle so many, so I wish we could do more, but we are kind of limited with capacity. And you can also email me directly at Jono, Jono, at hubbli.com. I'll just type that into the chat. And you can also call me toll free at 1-888-415-4450, extension 100. Doreen, you're very welcome for all this information. Please let me know if you have any other questions about anything. So we got a lot of folks signing up for this parent assessment, which is great. Of course, we love doing it. We are somewhat limited with how many we can offer. We've got 2 spots left. If anybody wants to sign up and get that free download as well. And I just want to thank everybody that came in today and joined us and give us some helpful feedback. It helps when you tell us how you're doing, what you're using at the school. We love your questions, of course. Really, really much appreciated to stick with us, to take the time out of your day, and it's really an honor to have you guys tuning in. We're gonna be on the line for a few more minutes if anybody else wants to ask any questions, or if you want to go ahead and get that offer today. If you're not able to do it in the next few minutes, you can always go to. I'll just go back up to the page with the link there. You can get it at hubbli.com/getreport. You can do that, all day. And but if you want to get that download, that'll be only available for the next few minutes. That's our bonus for acting fast. And it's actually a great download. Really, really helpful information. We really dig into what I talked about today, with a whole bunch of added content, because can only say so many things. Can only teach so much in 1 hour, of course. So for the people that are still with us, I'd love to ask, is there anything specifically, any tool specifically you found takes more time to manage than you expected it to before you started using it? Is it Facebook? Is it something like Constant Contact, or some other, maybe another school-specific tool that you thought it would maybe you thought it would actually help reduce your time? But I ask this question because I always learn really interesting things from talking with customers for Hubbli. Sign Up Genius. So that you found it interesting, Doreen. Thanks for your feedback. Sign Up Genius. I actually hear that a lot. Sign Up Genius is something that a lot of schools use, and yeah, it's. I think a lot of times people don't realize that all these tools essentially are their own databases, which have to be maintained. And there's information that you're collecting, and then it has to come out and go somewhere and be shared with somebody, or be organized, or imported into something else, or there's all these extra steps that you don't necessarily think of when you're checking out software. If you need to use it in coordination with other processes or other tools, and that's why at Hubbli, we've created this all-in-one system so that you only have one database, and it doesn't require all those additional steps. Our goal is to help reduce your workload and reduce the complexity to so that you've got one database to manage, and one software to learn, rather than 10 different softwares to learn, because every software is designed differently and has different features. So we're counting down now. We're only got about 42 seconds to continue this offer right now, to get the parent communication assessment and to get the download of the ebook. But at any point, you can go to hubbli.com/getreport, and that's how you can sign up for the parent communication report card later on today. If maybe if you don't have your credit card on you right now, or so it'll still be available for you for $97. which is, quite honest, that's a steal for what you're going to get out of it. For a full hour of consulting, we usually go even longer, of course, and then we do a lot of information that we're going to share with you. That's going to be very useful, specifically for all your different parent communication scenarios, which there's almost too many to list. Every time I try to list all the different things that different ways you engage parents, it just keeps on getting longer and longer. Okay, so we're at the end of the webinar. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us and for giving your feedback and engaging with us and taking part. It's an honor to have you. Again, you can email me at jono@hubbli.com, and you can call me at 1-888-415-4450, extension 100. And if you just want to go ahead and sign up for the report later today, go to hubbli.com/getreport, and that'll be available to you. And we're gonna end it off there today. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful day, guys.